Hi. Hi. Oh, that side is it? Yeah. Why is this room so warm?
From your speaker, it's all right. I'll stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, I request you all to please settle down. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Business Continuity Awareness Week 2025. Here at KIAB, where we don't just plan for a rainy day, we plan for storms, floods, power cuts, and alien invasion too. And sometimes we also plan for the copy machine breakdown as well. But thank God today AC is not working. Guess why? Because today we are celebrating Business Continuity Week, and we want to show that in case the AC is not working, we have prepared a backup plan, and that's a fan which is always ready. So to begin with, we have our BCM story wall segment. Before we begin this event, it's time to leave a mark, but not just anywhere, but on the precious signature wall. I call the dignitaries to sign on the wall, please. Mr. Sataki Raghunath, to sign on the wall, please. Yeah, it's your.
Wall is here.
Dr. Devasya, Ms. Kshitija Kade, and Mr. Satish Babu. And Mr. Satish Babu from Air India Sats. Is not?
Anywhere.
So I request you all to please sign on the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. Please settle down. This year's theme is Redefining Resilience, creating a future-proof airport. Sound intense, right? Does it sound intense? It does. But don't worry, we are not expecting you to build a time machine unless you have already started. And in case you have started, please share the blueprint with the business team too. It's about building smarter, adapting faster, and yes, being prepared even when your GPS reroutes you straight into the unknown. Because resilience today is less about bouncing back and more about bouncing forward, probably without a limb. Now, you might wonder, why do we need a whole week for business continuity, right? Well, think of it like a fire drill. But instead of running out of the building, screaming, we are staying in. And how are we staying in? We are staying sharp and learning how to keep things running. Come rain, shine, or zombie apocalypse. But trust me, our AOCC team is doing a good job. In case of any zombies invasion, they will still keep you updated. Because AOCC is here to share the real-time data, right? It's a joke. Would AOCC share? How would AOCC know in case of zombies invasion, right? But okay, fine. I think they'll sit in front of the system and share the data, I guess. I don't know. So without much ado, to talk more about today's theme, I call upon Mr. Vinod from IASIA. Over to you, Vinod.
Thank you. Thank you, Ankita. Thank you so much. Namaste to all. A warm welcome to day one of Business Continuity Awareness Week. I know it's really hot, but please bear us through the event. I'm just breaking it into four simple aspects. The first thing is the background, the objective of why we are having a Business Continuity Awareness Week. The third thing is on the theme. I'll quickly walk you through the theme. And the fourth thing is the way ahead. What are we going to do throughout this week? So the background is very simple. This initiative is a global one, which is set by the Business Continuity Institute. So this is headquartered at the United Kingdom, right? So they have a Business Continuity Awareness Week throughout different sectors, and aviation being one among. We are also celebrating this week. And if you look at the theme per se, it has three important components. First one is long-term sustainability. So that basically means resilience in sync with sustainability is the focus this time. Second thing is adaptability. So you all are aware, when COVID struck, how adaptable we were. It was not written in the rule book what had to be done, but we had to adapt to COVID, right? So a war group was formed, so on and so forth, and we had to move through and sail through it, basically. And the third one is innovation. In today's world, we have the AI in place. So having those components amalgamated into the whole business continuity concept per se. The last one is the road ahead. So I humbly request everybody to capitalize on this opportunity, because we have guest speakers coming in from different parts of the country, and we've to learn the best practices from them is our main intention. And everybody needs to know what is running in the market right now, so that we also learn and be the best as far as business continuity standards are concerned. So that's one. The second thing is we have our leadership talk. So Satyaki ji, thank you so much for coming. Basically, without their commitment, without their blessings, I don't think nothing is possible, right? So it's very important for our leadership team to give that particular commitment. Finally, what I'd like to say is that we have a very important unveiling today, which is the QRT. Dr. D will walk us through what Quick Response Team unveiling is all about. So without further ado, I'd like to again give back the stage to Ankita. Thank you so much for your cooperation. We need your support throughout this week, and it's very vital for us. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. Throughout the week, we have engaging activities lined up. Awareness sessions, surprise quizzes, and some visual campaigns that are more exciting than spotting an empty seat in the airplane. So, bring your ideas, your curiosity, and if you're lucky, some snacks along, because you will need the energy to outwit the situations. So, buckle up folks, it's going to be an insightful ride. Together, let's make resilience more than a buzzword. It's time to live it, lead it, and maybe laugh a little along the way. Because here at KIAB, even our contingency plans have contingency plans. And maybe a backup charger too. To officially kick things off, we are honored to hear from someone who knows operations like a pilot knows the cockpit. And that is none other than our very own Chief Operating Officer. The topic of his talk today, operational continuity, the engine of uninterrupted travel experience. Let's just say, without continuity, even the most beautiful airport becomes a waiting lounge, right? So please join me in welcoming Mr. Satyaki Raghunath, who will now take us through the power of preparation and how operational excellence meets continuity. I welcome you on the stage. I think there also has to come here. Yeah, here you have it.
You have the slides in case you want.
No, I don't. I think generally. I asked Rajesh, so good morning everyone. Lovely to see you all here, and I think it's a very important event, as Vinod and Ankita just very eloquently sort of called out. At the end of the day, we are an airport, and I think nothing is more important than business continuity. We are a 24/7 operation. We are an international airport. As all of you know, we are the third busiest airport in India today, and we have today we average about 120,000 passengers a day, right? And we average about 1,500 to 1,700 metric tons of cargo also every day. Which means that regardless, come rain or shine, regardless of weather, regardless of any event, COVID, etc., this airport stays open. And all of you are part of that story. All of you remember what we went through during COVID, which was something that none of us had experienced before. And so many other crises, emergencies, etc. And in every case, we've stayed open. And I think that underscores the importance of Business Continuity Awareness Week, because all of us are operating in an industry where we take it for granted that we are open for business at all times, and the entire nation depends on the fact that we are an essential bit of infrastructure and we can't shut down. So I mean, we have it almost in our charter, the fact that we are a 24/7 operation, 24/7, 365 operation, and we have to do what we have to do, and we have to do it in an uninterrupted way. So I think that is a starting point of everything that we are all looking at. The other thing is that it's gotten more complex. When we started off, I mean, we were an airport that dealt with 8-9 million passengers. Some of you were there. Dr. Devasya, Shileka, others were here when the airport opened, and we had about 9 million passengers in the first year. Today we have 40 million passengers. In 5 years' time, we will have anywhere between 75 and 90 million passengers a year, right? So, which means that it's getting only more important, more complex, more difficult to think about what could happen if something happens. Which means that you have to have, as I think, as you said, right, or you have to have a backup plan for the backup plan. You have to have a BCM for the BCM. So somebody has to clone Dr. Devasya and sort of have Devasya squared, Devasya cubed, etc., right? And I think all of you are here, so hopefully, we are in good hands. But I think what I'd like to say is, in an airport, things also have a domino effect. I mean, I think if something happens, it sort of cascades, and there's cumulative impact over the day, right? Most of you see it, for instance, when you look at flight delays. So if there's a delay in the morning, that aircraft, for instance, it starts getting delayed throughout the entire day. I mean, we've all been passengers, we all know, right? You're waiting in some airport and all of a sudden they tell you that the incoming flight is delayed, which means that your flight is delayed. And when that happens through the day, there's sort of a knock-on impact, right? And that happens. So you can imagine what happens when, there's a weather event or there's some other event like happened so tragically a few weeks ago in Ahmedabad, for instance. What happens is there's a huge knock-on impact. And I think from our perspective, our job as sort of professionals in the industry is to try and figure out how do we stay informed, how do we stay ahead of the game, and how do we have that backup plan, how do we have contingency measures, how do we make sure that we've got response that is adequately, calibrated for every situation. And I think the professionals who are in this business, and I'm not the expert at BCM, I mean, I think all the experts are all of you, and that's why we rely on the professionals. And I think today we've got Kshitija, who was telling us just before we came in here about VFS, which is a global organization with 3,000 offices in 144 countries, I think you said. And I think I was just telling her that, wow, we think of ourselves as sort of big, but 3,000 offices in 144 countries is huge, right? And you think about business continuity in that context. So every day, I think you're going to hear from experts and professionals in the business continuity field who are going to come and talk to us about what it takes in their context, what it takes in their field. And I think the idea is that all of us gain knowledge from listening to experts and sort of also think how it applies in our context. And hopefully we can also talk about what we do, and they can take back some of the learnings that I suppose we've got out of the many years here. And I think many of you are also aware of things like the Challenger exercise that we do every 2 years. Why do we do it? We do it because of business continuity. Actually, it's one of those things that we do because in case something happens, how do you react? In case a situation or a crisis were to happen, what do we need to do, right? And all of you are trained in that. All of you are participants in that, and all of you have been through so many Challenger exercises. And last time we did multiple situations. In fact, we did it in terms of simulating what happens between here and the city, right? The green corridor between here and the city. We do it, for instance, because sometimes organs get transplanted. I mean, we do that regularly, right? All of you remember, organs come in and out of the airport, live organs. We have to keep contingency plans in place. And all of these are actually BCM measures. And so I think if you think about it that way, the airport itself is a large ecosystem. We've got business continuity across the campus. But so many small things that we do every day is based on business continuity, right? We have contingency measures if there's a water leakage in the terminal. We have that, right? A couple of weeks ago, we had water leakage in terminal. I mean, you were aware, we were all sort of out there trying to clean up all the water and make sure we could still operate the airport. But passengers didn't come to sort of see it. And that's part of business continuity. Similarly, tomorrow, let's say, last year we had a day when there was a storm in a different airport. We had 31 diversions that we took here, right, on a single day. And the operation went very smoothly. Nobody sort of panicked. Everybody did what they were supposed to do because that's what we do. So the idea is also that in a crisis, everybody remains calm, everybody remains collected, everybody is able to respond, everybody is able to do what they're trained to do when the unplanned happens, because you're sort of already thinking about the fact that the unplanned is also the planned. And I think that's why it is very important to sort of think about what all of them were talking about, which is the context of business continuity, the ability to have sort of contingency plans and measures in place, and the ability to think ahead. And I think now with technology coming sort of to the fore and more tools available to us, I think we are getting better prepared, right? Even if you look at even our AOCC, what is the AOCC? The AOCC is actually a small way in which we do business continuity, right? Because everybody has situational awareness, everybody has sort of a clear idea of what's going on the air side, the terminal, the land side across the campus. And the idea is that you can prepare, you can sort of predict, and you can assign resources in order to manage the situation should something happen, right? So we do it without even thinking these days, and we sort of, I think we've gotten better at it over the last 17 years. Of course, there's a lot to learn, and I'm sure there are lots of situations that we've not even thought about. Last year, when the fire happened on the Air India Express on that aircraft for the first time in 16 years, the ARFF team reacted with absolute precision, right? I mean, it was a textbook sort of evacuation, textbook extinguishing of the fire, and we managed to, passengers, I mean, there was not anybody. The worst that anybody had was a friction burn coming down the slides, which happens all the time, right? But we couldn't have done it had we not trained for it. We couldn't have done it if we had not thought about business continuity. We couldn't have done it if the team hadn't thought about what are the different things that could happen. So I think it's absolutely imperative for all of us to think about it. We're in an industry which is based on safety and security, and I say this every time I go anywhere because the bedrock of aviation is safety and security. And that means that everything that we do is sort of, is grounded in those two things. So, I'm really happy that you're doing this. I think we do this every year. We do a BCAW every year. And kudos to Dr. Devasya and the entire ERCR and BCM team. So, a huge round of applause for all of you. And the wider stakeholder system here, because we could not do it without all of you. I mean, I think everybody does their bit here on the BIAL campus, and we do it collaboratively and together. And I think all of you have played a huge part in making sure that we do what we do every day. And the fact that so many things that people don't even see. This airport runs without people seeing so many of those things that go on in the background. And I think that's true of every business. I mean, I think Kshitija is going to talk to us today about sort of what goes on in her business and in that context. And it's going to be very interesting. In fact, she was talking about all the crisis zones across the world. And, I've told Devasya to call her every month and figure out where the world crises are happening, because at least we get to know. So I think, lots of things that we can learn. But very, very nice to see all of you here. And all the best for a great week full of stimulating discussions. And hopefully, as we go through this and as we get that information, we will be able to take those learnings and factor that into our crisis management plan, into our business continuity plan, into our ERCR, etc., so that we can strengthen those processes, institutionalize them, and make sure that we are better prepared for anything that might happen, right? So all the best, and thank you.
Thank you, Satiki sir, for your words.
I will have to go because I have to go to a second function at the other AI side. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Thank you, sir. No worries, no worries. Thank you, sir. Next, we are privileged to have with us a distinguished guest today. With over 2 decades of experience in risk and business continuity, she is proof that resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about designing strength into the system from the beginning. Please welcome in joining Ms. Srijita Khade, Head Risk and Business Continuity at VFS Global, to speak on the topic Resilience by Design, Building a Future-Ready Ecosystem. She is to share her insights that might make you rethink the phrase Plan B, because her Plan B generally includes Plan C and D. Please welcome you on the stage.
Are we controlling it from somewhere?
Yes.
And in the meantime, I'm really privileged with the confidence Ankita has displayed in me. I don't know about Plan C and Plan B. I really hope I have them. So, thanks all for being here. We're going to speak about resilience by design, building a future-ready ecosystem. And one of the interesting things that I found out while speaking with Ram or Dr. Devashay or Vinod is you guys are already a very robust ecosystem, as I had expected in an airport, because there are several teams which make these operations go around. It's not just the airport staff, but a lot of the ground staff, a lot of the catering staff, and all of you are actually coming together to give us a cohesive experience for the customers. So that in itself is an ecosystem. I'll start with an introduction of myself. I've been working for around 18 years now, partly as a software developer, and then majority of my career has actually been in business continuity. So I've started with the traditional way of starting with IT, then moving on to BCM, moving on to consulting roles, and currently I'm with BFS Global as the capability development and BCM operations lead for BFS Global. Now, what I have noticed over my entire duration with BCM is, we started with BS 25999. I don't know how many of you were working in this field at that point of time, but if you are aware of the standards that we, adhere to, then BS 25999 was the father of all the BCM standards. It came from British standards, and typically that's what happens. British standard sets up a standard, and then the ISO standardizes it internationally and makes a ISO standard out of it. So BS 25999, for those of you who had the privilege of seeing it, was extensive. It was a checklist-based standard. ISO has now moved on to a much more standardized approach. They are not really giving you the exact controls you need to keep in touch with, but they ask you more to look at the organization. So every ISO standard actually starts with the context, and that's where this resilience comes in, because we are now moving away from a checklist of activities to understanding what is it that you do as an organization, what are your ecosystems, what are your interested parties, and what are the pushes and pulls that you get in your day-to-day operations. So we are seeing a move towards resilience over the last few years, and part of it is also because we are an increasingly interconnected world. We might be based in India, but our suppliers might be in China or Australasia for some OEM, original equipment manufacturer might be somewhere else. So we are an increasingly interconnected world, and at the same time, we are also seeing a lot of volatility as a result of multiple factors, supplier disruptions, climate change, and so on. So that's where BCM team now no longer handles your typical event, which was at your premises for your staff. You're now also looking at geopolitical issues or climate changes or things that you would never have imagined would affect your premises. Right? So we need to then go ahead and anticipate these changes, and that's where all of you come in as the various stakeholders in the organization, because you are the ones who work in particular functions, you understand it, and you know what are the risks to your functions. So it becomes your responsibility then to understand your proper risk assessments, go ahead and, bring it to the attention of your BCM team, because I'm sure all of you are BCM champions, and in fact, I feel this room is filled with the BCM champions from across the functions from what I've heard today morning. So it's your responsibility to then point out those risks to the BCM team, get them to take it into consideration while building their strategies. Now, again, internal, external suppliers, we spoke about that. But, there's another factor which has improved over the last decade. Earlier, I've grown up in the world without the internet, where I looked at the library and looked at the books. But many of us, the younger generations especially, are dependent on internet. They are aware of what's going on, and they have information at their fingertips. And that then makes it very important for them to be satisfied with what we are providing. And that's where standards, regulations come in. Because everybody is enabled with a camera, you are surrounded by 1,000 cameras around you. Anything goes wrong, you're going to go onto the internet, and that's going to cause you a reputation impact, right? So you have increased scrutiny from the customers. You have increased scrutiny from the regulators that you adhere to. So you have the Airports Authority of India, for example. And you have so many security measures that you have to take. So all of these would then be something that you have to consider while planning your measures, so you're no longer a silo function, basically. That's what I'm getting at. And therefore, what resilience means is to anticipate the change that's coming your way, understand how that's going to really affect you, and then adapt to it, come up with some process, and regularly assess how effective are the measures that you're putting in place. Is it really working? So agility becomes a very key component for all of us now in resilience. I don't know if this is clear. Is this clear? Okay, let me read it. Thank you, sir. Let me actually try to read it out to you. What I've done over here is I've given you the core of any organization in the center, which is the management staff, the suppliers and partners who work immediately on your premises, and the sub-suppliers also who might be on premises or might be supporting you remotely. And then you have the entire ecosystem, which is, this is a typical organization that I've tried to demonstrate. There may be some additional partners, but typically you would have, the food and beverages services or the housekeeping staff who are not immediately affecting your lines of service, but they are going to be on the premises. Anything like a food poisoning case in the, in your restaurants is going to affect customers, is going to affect your reputation. So you have a domino effect coming in if they are not adhering to some regulations. You have the regulators and auditors, so the various standards that you adhere to, the various requirements from the government bodies, the other authorities across the globe who monitor airports, that becomes a system that you need to be aware of. You need to have a comprehensive GRC tool built in, where you're kind of, maybe not a tool exactly, but at least a risk matrix which basically identifies what are the compliances that you need to meet. And then your customers, now I've done a classification where I assume your customers would be the airlines and your customers would be the passengers who come in. And both of these are going to exert pressure on the airport staff as well, because you are the ones who are front-facing it. And I have been a passenger, I've seen those kind of interactions when people get irritated, and in those moments I really feel for all of you, because it's not easy to handle people who are coming with certain expectations. So this, keeping them ready, having contingency plans to manage their expectations, that also becomes a factor to consider. Making sure that you know how to displace the load of customers and give them the hospitality that's required. Your investors, trade unions for teams who work for you, though the influence is decreasing, trade unions still exist and they may still cause, compliance issues. So if you look at Air France, for example, they usually have some sort of an outage at least once a year because of trade union related outages. They are on strikes, riots, and then if you've ever been lucky enough to land at Paris airport at that time, that is really taking the cake because you're there for the day then. So managing that, your situations in that kind of an environment also becomes a problem. And your competitors, though of course you would be here, and it's more about competitors indirectly affecting you. There's a lot of reputational impact that competitors spread backhandedly or whatever. So it is very important for you to even have your corporate communications in place to manage this kind of media relations, PR relations, and get that across. So coming to what is organizational resilience, it's a very big term. If you think about it as organizational resilience, it seems like a heavy term, but broken down, it's very simple. You need to have those feedback systems to anticipate the changes. It might mean a trade war or a tariff change coming in as a feedback from the finance team to the BCM or ERCR team, if that's the team responsible. So how does that affect the operations of the airport? Do your prices suddenly fluctuate of the goods, and does that have any impact on the way you're going to see the revenue being generated from all of your duty-frees, etc.? Or, also looking at what are the geopolitical issues. Are you suddenly going to see air closures somewhere causing delays in flights taking off from Bangalore as well? Recently all the air spaces closed about Middle East. So how did that affect you? And are you really governing all of these events, whether geopolitical, climatic, and are you understanding what are the impacts or the after impacts it's having on your operations? So that is something that we need to also be aware of. And then, when you start seeing these changes, either because you predicted it or it's already had an impact, you will yourself start to make tweaks to how you're operating. You will adapt your operations to try to handle that. And you need to be agile here. So there has to be a quick feedback system. So you maybe have a discussion daily at the start of the day to understand what happened the previous day and how is operations being affected and what are the corrective measures we need to take. That's the more important thing. Do we need to tweak our process further to, deliver better? And assess. So, whatever decisions you're taking, one of the principles to keep in mind is not the revenue impact or the financial impact, But are you going to back this same decision 5 years down the line? Because if you're looking at the revenue impact, you might take a short-sighted decision which may not work out in the long run. So what is the sustainability of what you're implementing? How does it look 10 years down the line for you? So that's the assess part of it. Now, risk management itself has evolved, right? Earlier it was plain CSA and we were looking at risk. Maybe you heard of black swan events, right? Black swan events, what are those? They are highly improbable events which nobody could foresee, but they have very high impacts. So you could never see something like the financial crisis in 2008, which happened. You wouldn't have realized that something, as simple as selling mortgages in pieces as an investment is going to backfire and get the entire global economy to collapse, right? So these are the events which are unpredictable in nature. We can't see it coming, and then we are scattered and we are not able to react to it unless we are agile enough to adapt to the situation and decide what to do next. Next, you have the grey rhinos. So these are highly probable events, high impact events, which we know about, but we choose to ignore because it's more convenient to not think about it. So something like climate change. Now this is something that all of us have heard for the last decade at least. But are we really thinking about what to do if climate change happens? And you can now see, the effect on all the cities, like Bangalore getting flooded. This never used to happen 10 years back. I've never heard of it. So similarly in Mumbai, the amount of rains that happened. So these are climate changes. And we are aware that this is coming, but we are not necessarily putting in the impact, the finances or taking the measures because we think this can be, deprioritized. There's something more at a higher priority, but it comes and hits us something. And then black jellyfish. Now this is the latest one, right? And these are predictable in nature. We know this will happen, but it happens through rapid escalation. So to give you an idea of where this terminology came from, the climate change has warmed the seas, right? And the temperatures have increased to a place where it's more conducive for jellyfish to breed and become larger in numbers. And these jellyfish have then gone at the outlets of the nuclear power generators undersea of Sweden and caused problems over there, stopped the generation of electricity. Now, it is a domino effect. It happened through escalation. Something like climate change giving rise to an increase in the count of black jellyfish, causing a disaster of this level where your power supply is disconnected. It is highly probable, but it happened through multiple things. Nobody really stopped the first thing, that was climate change, and so now it's escalated into a completely different situation where you have a situation where you're facing the consequences in a way. So these are typically ignored as they are uncomfortable to confront. Another one is global pandemic. So a lot of people actually think COVID-19 is a black swan event. But if you really think back, we've had SARS-1, SARS-2, MERS, Ebola. We've had these epidemics happening. And it was also predicted by Bill Gates. But we've not taken it seriously enough. We also knew about the wet markets of China being a problem. But nothing was done to regulate it, and now it's had an impact where 3 years of suffering has been caused globally. So this is, again, another event which escalated. So we are looking at how sources of disruptions have changed. Initially, when a BCM team would think about this 10 years down the line, I would try to understand what are the enablers for my organization, who are my people, who are my premises, where are my premises, who are my suppliers, what's my IT application, right? So I was looking mainly at what are the man-made disasters, natural disasters, what are any technical disruptions that take place in my IT ecospace, or can there be epidemics, not even pandemics, but epidemics. Now, what is the new source of disruption? So you are currently living in this kind of a world where you have global supply chains, you have consumer bases who are much more aware, you have increased regulations, and organizations now need to demonstrate resilience for this. So some of the changes are media, social media articles, and I've tried to give you some examples. So the Cadbury product recall because they found worms in a particular packaging. And then the entire product had to be recalled. It's caused them financial impact. It's made them change the way they manufacture and package things. So again, something like having aware consumer bases has had a disruptive effect on Cadbury. Now, this also stems from the fact that people are much more aware. People are much more aware of the data being shared, the effect of that data being shared without their permission, and they are therefore looking at how do they protect their own personal information, SPII, where can it be misused and how can they stop it. So you have increasing resilience or secure compliances coming up. Things like DORA, which thankfully until now is restricted to the financial world in Europe. And they basically speak about not third-party risk management, but fifth-party risk management. So you're now going to audit not just your supplier, but your supplier's supplier's supplier. So imagine the amount of paperwork over there. And if it ever comes to any other industry apart from financial, then I might give up this career. So it's a lot of work. So there is a lot of scrutiny on us because of the effect of all of these compliances coming in, or even DPDP. In 2016, GDPR came out, which got implemented by 2018, made the entire world aware of what is data privacy, and now all the governments, whether it's Saudi Arabia, India, everyone's coming up with these. So DPDP will become something that will affect you because you are collecting photos of people in your IT applications, you're collecting the PII data, the passport data. So this is going to be something that you would have to look at when it gets implemented, and you'll have to see how it maps and matches into your resilience thing. How are you protecting this data? How are you creating the backups? And how are you ensuring that nothing gets breached if there is a resilience event? If your IT application falls or crashes, does your disaster recovery have the same kind of security measures to ensure this? Boycott and cancel culture. This is one of the most deadly things. There are numerous videos anytime on Facebook about people being dragged off airlines, airplanes, people misbehaving with front staff over here. So this is a big problem, and this is where your ability to train your staff on how to have those customer relationships, customer interactions, that becomes critical. Now, you might think, what does this have to do with BCM? It's a proactive way to prevent a crisis from happening. And that is what resilience is. We are not reactive anymore in the way we are acting on events. We are trying to be more proactive, anticipate these things before it takes place, and then put in place the measures so that nothing even takes place, the disruption doesn't take place in the first place. And then key suppliers, recently there are certain metals or chemicals which China exports, and they are the only supplier in the world. And if they stop, then the semiconductor industry around the world is going to be disrupted. So what do you do if there's a failure of such a key supplier? Do you have some sort of a backup? Are you exploring backups? So you should know what are your dependencies, to what extent is it a dependency for you, and how are you going to go and counter it if there was a failure in that supply chain. And finally, I have just written fluctuations in currency, but honestly, we all know what's happening with the tariff wars that's going on. So any of this, anything financially, economically, it can affect you. And let me tell you from my experience, what I'm seeing more and more is, again, as an outsourcing company, I am bound by my contracts to my customers. And while initially they spoke only about backup premises and stuff, now they're asking what happens if you go bankrupt? What are the fail-safes that you have built so that we don't suffer because of supplier chain issues at your end? So this is an issue which we are seeing in contractual requirements coming in, and that just means that we have to work not just with the operations teams, but also with the finance team, the IT team, and the legal teams to understand what happens in these kind of situations. So that's basically what I'm saying, that you don't work in a silo anymore. You now are a much more connected function, organization, ecosystem. You need to know what are the risks in all of the, not just your functions, but also suppliers. Are they able to deal with those risks? What are the fail-safes that you have put in place? What have they put in place, right? So you examine your ecosystem more closely and try to build those fail-safes, make your risk management much more robust. And one of the objectives of risk management has to be single points of failure. Because typically what happens is every function has its way of dealing with a risk. right? If I'm a financial function, for example, I will look at only the finance aspects of things. I'm not thinking about what happens if my people are not available, or what are the disruptive effects that I can have on the organization. So having those ecosystems, those fail-safes in place is important by making the approach towards risk management important. So in a nutshell, this is resilience by design, how you implement it. You need to have a systems mindset. You need to think about what are your inputs, what are your outputs, what's the process in middle. It cannot be what does the HR team do, what does the IT team do, and so on. Everything put together to give you your final output, which is a proper, sustainable, and comfortable journey for the customer who comes into Bangalore Airport. So what does it take to get you there, and how do all of these functions mesh together, and how do you make sure that this process continues? Emphasis on agility, being aware of exactly what are the failures before it becomes a disruption. Stitch and time saves 9. So basically, if you see something failing and fixing it before it escalates into something larger, that's going to ensure that you're not even getting to the disruptive phase, and that's going to be your emphasis on agility. And psychological safety. So people need to be safe enough to speak about what's happening. For example, in our organization, we have a whistleblower channel. It's a way of making sure that everybody is safe enough to, identify the problems and speak out about it without the fear of retribution. It's not always going to be about whistleblowing. It could be something else also. It could be just that you notice something, but you're not confident enough to go to your leadership and speak about it. That has to go away. So the psychological safety of the staff members and building those feedback systems is very important. Adaptable leadership, where they are taking the feedback seriously, and then cohesive culture, again, it comes back to not working in silos. So the principles are basically having active or active-passive setups, right? Now, as you know, there's a lot of unpredictability in something like a Bangalore airport, which is a physical premises. You have to be present physically. It's not a work-from-home kind of a culture. So having these kind of backups, where you identify what is your next go-to solution if something doesn't work. Let me give you an example. It may or may not be relevant to you, but I had a delayed flight to Mumbai, landing in the domestic terminal after 12 p.m. and it stops working. So they got us to land in the international airport, and then we were transported by bus. But that is an active relationship that they have. They have that understanding if something goes wrong. If we have those delays, we have a way of getting the customers down. We have a safe holding area for them, and we have a smooth way to transfer them back to collect their luggage from T1. So having those active relationships is very important. Load balancing. So do you understand what are the busiest times where you are working? When is the peak customers? You may see on weekdays, for example, people who are going for meetings taking early morning flights, and then there's such a crowd over there. And then during the midway, you do not have so much. So you have to understand where your peaks are, and you to deploy your customers, your staff accordingly. Failure detection and recovery. So what are the components? This again goes back to systems mindset, right? Knowing how your input feeds into the next system to give the output. So if something fails, if let's say one counter stops printing your boarding passes, what kind of an effect is it going to have? And can you correct it? You have detected the failure. How are you going to recover from it? Are you going to open up another counter? Are you going to redirect the customers to the open counters? It would depend on your peak load at that time, right? So that's another one. Monitoring and alerting. So having those feedback systems, again and again I keep coming back to this, but there are several feedback systems, right? You have SIEM tools, security incident monitoring tools for IT systems. You have to have similar feedback systems for operations, for HR, for IT. Some of them may have a more critical nature, some may not, but you have to have those feedback systems to say, this is the problem, we need to pay attention here before it becomes a bigger problem. And then monitoring and alerting, right? So again, coming back to what are the various systems I can put in place. So for example, we have a 24/7 monitoring team, which just does nothing but monitors news channels and news sources throughout the day. And whenever they see anything affecting us in a city where we operate, they give us an alert, right? So that is your monitoring for day-to-day operations, not just the IT technology monitoring. So what are those feedback systems also? And then resilience testing. So, all of us do BCP testing, but we pick a scenario and we say, okay, my scenario today is multiple staff members felt sick and I do not have sufficient people to service my customers. So I'm going to do this scenario where I look at backup staff. Are we also thinking about the component testing for that? Are you actually thinking about what if my backup staff members do not have the background verification to work on that particular process? Do they have the training? Are you looking at, do they have something as simple as credentials? So not really having a high-level scenario where you say, okay, I'm going to look at my backup staff member, this backup staff member will report. But in a real-life situation where multiple staff members, including that pre-identified backup staff member is not available, what do you do then? Do you have some way of fast-tracking the system, getting them onboarded quickly? So that is another component testing, right? Your IT application login systems, do they work fast enough to allow the access to be given to staff members on short notice? And then designing for recovery. So again, scenario planning, you need to think out of the box. You need to think about what are your single points of failure and then plan for what you will do in that situation. Plan that scenario and test it. So these are the principles. We are speaking about leadership and governance. Now this plays a very critical role. And in a couple of slides more, I'll speak about certain case studies where you will see what kind of a role leadership and governance plays. So the support of leadership and governance is very critical. For you to identify the risk and for them to take it seriously and implement the proper mitigation strategies is really the difference over here. So that is where they are going to give you the strategies and the risk mitigation approaches for various situations that you address. Adaptability and flexibility. There are new innovations which are coming around, right? Artificial intelligence, one of the biggest disruptors of all industries. How are you going to get it into your own? How are you going to use it for your own advantage? Do you have the people who know at least how to use it? You may not need to develop it for your organization, but somebody needs to leverage it at the right places. And one of the things that we have is, I think it's a global security governing organization, BCAW, who kind of gives us those alerts, right? I think a lot of you might be aware of it. So they already are thinking of, they are actually deploying a tool which is based on AI, which looks at all the alerts across the world and sends out on real-time basis a very quick notice to the organizations. Now, if I'm based in a manual setup, the person taking note of all these alerts and processing it and telling me the alerts in various locations is going to take much longer than an artificial intelligence system. So are we innovating? Are we adapting the technology? That's going to make a difference on how quickly you react to a particular situation. Risk management and preparedness is about you knowing your risks, identifying them, mitigating them. Resource management is having the proper resources, which is typically something that we are doing in BCM also, but we also need to pay attention from a resilience perspective. Communication and collaboration. Now this is another one which is very, very critical and which is often very overlooked. So do you know exactly who are your stakeholders when something goes wrong? Internally, externally, client base, government authorities. And are you communicating with them in the right way and in the right time frame? So if, for example, there's a data breach, and as per GDPR, once I get to know there's a data breach in the organization, I need to let them know within 72 hours. So do you have those timelines? Do you know what format things have to be, reported in? That's very critical as well. And then culture of innovation, learning, that's more about upskilling your staff, making sure that everyone's well-being is taken care of. Now this personal resilience is important because all of you are actually a huge capital to the organization, and therefore once you have spent so much time here, you have the know-how, it's very important that you're also taking care of your teams, making sure that the talent doesn't go anywhere else and you are able to retain them. So that's another important part of being resilient. How do you take care of your own staff? And sustainability, long-term planning. So these are all the various measures that you put in place to ensure your organization does not get affected by climate change, for example, something that's coming up. Or you know that there are multiple earthquakes which will be seen because the tectonic plates are shifting. So you saw that starting this year with Delhi, Thailand, somewhere in Afghanistan. That's because the tectonic plate is moving. It's going to break off at some stage, maybe in our lifetime, maybe not. But it's going to break off India and it's going to move off. So are you looking at this? Are you planning for it? And what are you planning for it? So that's your strategic planning and sustainability so that you know what to do when those situations eventually take place 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the line. So I think I've kind of covered this, but I'll very quickly look at, from a leadership perspective, create the safe environment, promote transparency in the organization so that people know what are the decisions being taken and for what reason, and therefore they're aligned with your mission. If they're not aligned with your mission, they're not going to be engaged staff members, and they're not going to be as great a support system as you need at the time of a crisis. Support innovative thinking, allow them to innovate. From a people perspective, you all have your own teams, train them, upskill them, look for avenues to grow them in your field, because that's going to then come back as your knowledge base, and that's going to help you make a better system. And also, from a process perspective, I read that ERCR is developing SOPs, for example. Now, that is a very important thing, that you have standardized processes, because it stops points of failure. One person doing a particular thing a particular way and another one giving a different experience, it's a point of failure for any organization. So standardize your processes, look at the places where you can automate or use the technology, and also for vendor relationships, making sure that they have the resilience in place. Look at the contractual requirements that you put in place. Do you have the force majeure clause, for example? What do they do if there's a crisis at their end? Does everything stop, or do they have a way of supporting you? And technology, adopting new technology, training the staff to use that technology. This is a major challenge that comes up. Now, for example, when I've deployed a GRC tool, and everyone is used to doing something manually in the organization, and suddenly they have to go through this workflow process where they input something, then that goes for a further approval to someone else, and it goes on and on. This, and a lot of us are actually not technical people, right? So that in itself, training the people to actually accept that change, use their computers. Why don't I just write an email instead of doing this kind of a mentality? You need to change that by training them and upskilling them. And allowing for innovation. Now, one of the major things on every organization's mind is getting AI integrated correctly. And correctly is a key word, because a lot of organizations have rushed into it. I'm not sure if you're aware about this recent case of a call center in Sweden called Klarna, which basically laid off a lot of resources who were in the marketing department, saying we'll take care of customer relationships and contact center work through AI. And then they face backlash for the kind of solutions being provided by AI, because it's robotic, it doesn't have that human feel, it's not able to empathize. So now they're on a rehiring spree and rethinking about this. So adopt the technology, innovate, but also innovate in the right way. It has to be a proper ecosystem that you're building with technology, people, and so on. Now, this is going to be a bit interactive. I might ask you a few questions. Please don't mind me. So, it's a case study about a recent event that has taken place, right? I don't know if all of you are aware of this, but somewhere in January this year, after President Trump came into office with his support analyst consultant in Elon Musk, we had a collision of a Black Hawk Down, which is a military helicopter in the US. The helicopter collided with a commercial flight. Everyone who was on board the planes passed away, tragically. Now, what do you think caused this event? Because you all are also looking at an airport infrastructure, you understand how things operate. So what do you think happened here, suddenly out of the blue, where a helicopter collided with a plane? Any guesses? Miscommunication, yes. Miscommunication is a component.
There could be multiple root causes for the same.
Right.
Yeah.
There are multiple root causes. Would you like to elaborate?
And considering the airlift that happened of this chopper, very geography, falls in line or it coincides with the path to the landing zone of the airport. And probably, as you rightly pointed out, the communication gap that happened between the three parties involved. One is potentially the ATC and the military helicopter. In this case, that is and the passenger aircraft types. Incoming, yeah, that's where potentially the gap is what we digested from the news.
So, yes, there is a very narrow vertical separation between the helicopter route and the airplane route at that particular airport. And it's about this Potomac River. Now, what happened also was Elon Musk came in and said, I'm going to save you $300 billion or something, and did massive layoffs, even in ATC controllers. So the ATC control was also very low manned. These were the risks which were taken, and then that's resulted in this tragedy. So what are the lessons we are learning over here? One is, identify what are your critical enablers to all of your processes. Make sure this identification is done properly, and here they knew that there is a vertical separation problem over here between the two routes. So it was a risk which had been identified. Deploy resources sufficiently at the ATC. The ATC was not manned sufficiently. And ensuring management support and committee. Now, this is a big ask for things like, fighting with directly the president's right-hand man. But making sure that whoever is a stakeholder, you're going ahead and speaking to them, highlighting the risks in a proper way, giving them the consequences of the risk, that this is potentially what could have happened. And then making sure that they buy into that and invest into your solution. That is a very important factor here. So having that management connect and commitment is very important from this perspective. And agility in managing tasks as per your seasonality. So again, you need to understand what is the seasonality, when do you require what kind of staffing at all of your critical points. And that's what's going to work out for you. Now, okay, unfortunately everything's come up over here. But, so, yeah. So this I think all of you are familiar with. It's the CrowdStrike event. Now CrowdStrike, it's actually the Microsoft O365 which had a bug in it. It wasn't a cybersecurity attack, right? It was a bug which went undetected, and it's deployed. Almost all organizations use O365 without a backup. So when this took place, it's affected not just hospitals and major organizations across the world, but also airlines, which are also then affecting, the airports. So that's your domino effect. When the digital systems went down, you had overcrowding of the airports. So I heard a number of 120,000 customers in a day, if I'm not wrong. You are distributing that across 24 hours. Imagine if the airlines are not able to get them out within an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. What is that effect going to have on your airport? What are you going to do about that crowding that happens at your airport? Do you have the controls in place to take care of crowding, which typically is a security concern? But here it stems from an IT problem. So, the feedback systems about how airlines feedback to you, and what kind of a relationship do you have with your vendors, possibly, hotel spaces or restaurants where you can keep the customers, provide them with coupons for food, beverages, overnight stays, whatever it takes. So are you building that kind of flexibility in your arrangements, which you already have? We've seen that for limited delays. But when you have a mass scale delay like that, can you scale it up in a very short period of time? So that becomes important, building those supplier relationships and staff resilience. If I have 10 people managing 100 customers at a time, and suddenly we now have 1,000 customers and the same 10 people, can we call the second shift or third shift in to do an extra shift to come in and support this crowd? So that is another thing that you look at. How do you build that staff resilience? Also, it's not just the manpower, right? How does the staff react in a particular tense conflict kind of a situation? How do they handle customer queries? So do they have that kind of mental fortitude to take on that kind of load? So have you skilled them enough? Have you trained them enough? Have you given them those seminars on maybe having difficult conversations, handling customers? That also is a very important thing, which is, training, upskilling your staff, even if it's the front, I'm sorry, I don't know the exact word, but the people who are, manning the counters at the airports, the front-facing staff. Exactly. Sorry about that. So, have you done that for them? So that is an important aspect as well. Some other cases, not airport related, Airbnb, when COVID-19 hit, travel was hit across the world, bookings were therefore hit. Again, another domino effect, right? But Airbnb actually lost 80% of their bookings in this period. So what have they done in this situation? They've shown agility over here because they've thought about how do you go ahead and improve the situation and ensure people still use my application instead of shutting down the application altogether. So they've looked at exploring, rebuilding the model to think of long stays or flexible travel. So if you booked on a particular day, you can't travel because of sudden lockdown. Can you move the booking to another period? Another one is Toyota. So during the tsunami, a lot of their suppliers, and here we are speaking about, the third, fourth, fifth suppliers, the OEMs, etc., the smaller suppliers who might exist, they were not able to get their goods across to the manufacturing firm. So what do you do in that event? So here they have, and again, this is retrospective, but as part of resilience, we need to do this actively where we think about what are our suppliers, what is the due diligence we've done for the suppliers, and what are their backup plans, and do those suppliers have single points of failure that they've considered while putting those backup plans in place? Do they have a resilience for their own suppliers? So that is something easier said than done, but this is one of the aspects that we can focus upon while building resilience. So finally, coming to the roadmap of how we go ahead and plan for a future-ready ecosystem, developing the standardized procedures, the SOPs, training people on the SOPs so that there are no failures manually. It's a saying that a chain is only as strong as the weakest link. In this case, it shouldn't be a human error which leads to an issue. So training them, having them on standard procedures is very important. Creating agile teams. Now this is going to happen when you make teams accountable for what they are doing. If someone is going to be passing on the buck, then they may never take on that initiative to come and inform you when some component fails. So making teams accountable for what they're doing and having the feedback systems, empowering them to take decisions when things go wrong, rather than waiting for the issue to be escalated to the higher levels and for getting instructions from there. Do you have the decision to fix the issue before it escalates? Adoption of new technology. This is something that no matter how much we all want to fight artificial intelligence, at some stage we cannot, or how much we want to fight, moving towards cloud or any other technology, we have to move there, because if we are not doing it, our competitors are doing it, they're giving better experiences, and therefore we are going to fall behind somewhere or the other. So that's where being open to adoption of new technology becomes a key thing. Encouraging resilient culture, so asking staff members to learn from their mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but do we allow them to, do we accept it and teach them the way forward, or are we harsh on them where they are living in a world of fear? So that is another important thing where you're allowing them to learn from mistakes, you're upskilling them, you're giving them the tools to come and approach you at any point of time. Because people at the end of the day are the ones who are going to run the show on the ground, no matter what technology or premises you have. Investing in people, again, and successful supplier integration. So when you speak about an ecosystem, we now need to stop thinking about an organization and then say it's not my problem, I will just levy penalties if my supplier fails. It's no longer as simple as that, because that supplier failing is going to cause disruptions to you. So ensuring that you have integrated that supplier towards your goal and making sure that they understand why they are supplying the way they are supplying to you. And also then putting in place the way processes accordingly becomes very important. And finally, coming back to BCM concepts, understanding what are your enablers, what are your dependencies internally, externally, and more importantly, doing a thorough risk assessment at all functions, all supplier levels. We're looking at single points of failure as well, apart from just their functional capacity. Do they also identify what can stop their operations? And then developing the risk mitigation strategies accordingly. And finally, that brings us to governance, risk, and compliance. So you need to have a proper governance, risk, and compliance framework in place, where you're looking at everything, whether it's your compliance issues, it's your auditor requirements, it's your operational requirements, it's things coming from support functions, and you're following a proper methodology to follow up on those processes, make sure that that doesn't escalate further and there are no failures. So that's it. Sorry, investing in security, whether it's physical security, very important. It could be technical components that you put in place or manual security controls, cyber security, data privacy, and any kind of other regulations that you need to do. So you need to get the right people to work on it. So that's it from my end. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, madam. I'm Nitin from ERC actually.
I have two questions. Firstly, I really appreciate the session. It was fantastic. A lot of information in very small time. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Now we got to know that you have organized, you have your offices across continents, and with the recent war between Israel and Iran, and then America entering into it.
Yeah.
What kind of arrangements did you make as a backup arrangement, something like that? So that's number one part of the question. The second is, you mentioned that you have some monitoring team also, which the job of them is to see TV throughout the day. If you have a vacancy, maybe you can let me know.
Right. So if I take the first one, you can do as much scenario planning as you like, but at the end of the day, there may still be a scenario which comes in and surprises you. So this is completely, and that's been happening since 2020 with COVID and all the conflicts, right? So this is something very unexpected. It's come out of the blue because you can understand Israel, Palestine, you can understand the immediate neighbors, Lebanon, but here they're firing across and over Iraq at each other. So it was a very unexpected development that came in, and we basically, the team that you're speaking about, they were the ones who alerted us, and they have been giving us proper idea about what is the impact, for air closures, for example. Because for us as an organization, that is also important. We need the various visas in certain cases to be flown to a particular country, right? So, or even the movement of people gets impacted because of air closures. So, a lot of people want to leave before the air closure happens, and then they come clamoring for their passports to the office, and we are not able to open because of the destruction around us. So it was a very agile situation. We actually started with our crisis management team calls, and in such cases, we actually give duty of care. That's the first priority, ensuring the safety of the staff, customers, and the suppliers that we work with, because we were working with a partner over there. So ensuring their safety, monitoring their safety, giving them the support, and then thinking about the next part, which is running to our operations again. So while our first operations are always, is everyone safe, and our expats, moving them out, so making sure that they are coordinating with the embassies, in the Indian embassy in the Operation Sindhu, which has taken place. 2 of our expats have also come back using that. So making sure that those touch points are coordinated. Just getting a car for them to move from Tehran to the point where the Indian embassy was going to pick from was a challenge. So it really makes a difference. And it's something that you can take on a case-on-case basis if you have not planned for that scenario. And that's why resilience kicks in, because if we had not had that GRC team alerting us, giving us the measures of what the embassy is doing, or what are the announcements coming up from the governments, do we shut down, do we open up, we would not be in a position to take those quick calls and then make sure that everybody is taken care of, and then eventually we open operations once things calm down. So that's what's being done in a nutshell.
Balance utilities present across 3,000 plus offices with 144 countries, and with the recent, not the latest, but the recent conflict that is happening between Russia and Ukraine. Consider the fact that you as an organization, or rather your organization, having its footprint on the west side of Ukraine and on the north end of Moscow in Russia, how do you manage to pull it off? Consider the fact that both those countries are in conflict, and you have your interest as an organization being present there. And how do you manage your sort of BCP and BCM related activities?
So it again comes down to the same, where we have the same measuring tools in place. We have a feedback system, and we are monitoring the situation. We are trying to stay on top of it, get into discussions with the teams in the right way. And it is actually not really a BCP, but it is the agility that we are demonstrating in identifying the issues as they occur and then trying to fix those and in that point of time. Which is basically what I was trying to say when I said, anticipate the situation, assess what your next step is going to be, and so adapt to that situation, and then assess what the next step is going to be. So that's the cycle.
I'm Vishal here from PS. I just had one question, right? You made a very interesting
At one point in the initial conversation that plan for these things, right? You don't think from a financial perspective. But unfortunately, right, realistically, right, all the organizations in this world, ultimately, whatever the plan is, there is always this financial aspect which is in the mind. Now, is it possible, or is there any way to do the predictive analysis? Right? For example, if you see the airport ecosystem, right, we basically we are a carrier, right? So any small change will get impacted. For example, let's say in road, right, in road if the weather is bad, I'll get impacted and it will be financial impact. But those are the impacts which you actually fold into your day-to-day operation. But the black swan impact that you spoke of, for example, if you see last week, US entered into the war, right? And immediately after that, if I put it into the practical example, right, the plane which was carrying about 120 tons is now only able to carry 70 tons. So that is 50 ton impact, right? And how that impact cascades is not only to us in terms of revenue. I mean, for us it's okay in terms of business revenue, we should be able to do it. But that 50 ton has another 5,000 customers whose critical shipments or samples or life-saving medicines are, on that flight. And that impact is something as a carrier, I will never be able to compensate for. So is there a possibility when we talk about BCA, right? Is there any possibility of some nature of predictive analysis, right? That this might happen or this might have the impact. So what are your views on that?
So that is exactly what I'm saying, that we need to step away from the silo approach that we have at the moment. Because, BCM team member, typically we are coming either from the cybersecurity, information security for space, or we are operations guys, or we are from the, security armed forces kind of backgrounds. So when you think about that, unless they are getting their feedbacks from your internal finance teams who are doing the risk assessments, who are monitoring these fluctuations and thinking about what could be the impact on you, they may not be able to translate it without that extra subject matter knowledge. And that's where it becomes very important for every organization to actually build those BCM champions, have those touch points where things are going wrong and they come to you. So, for example, in one of the previous organizations where I've worked, I'm obviously not the admin person, but I've had those touch points with the various departments. So the head of a finance firm, for example, she felt the building swing and she reached out to me saying, can you do something about it? Which is not my work, but that's the kind of visibility that the BCM team and the touch points they need to have with the various functions, so that if there's anything that even remotely seems like it's going to go wrong, they come back as a feedback to you, and then as a BCM person, you further coordinate with the BCM champion from that concerned department. So I further raise it to admin and get them to speak to each other, and that's the proactive resilience that you're building into your processes. So you cannot be dependent on the BCM team to predict what's going to happen financially. That prediction should be built into the function itself, which is responsible for it, and they should have a touch point with the BCM where they feedback any risks that are coming in. So that's.
I think makes sense. Basically, what you're trying to say, I think every organization should have
some kind of a committee which actually is more of a functional, and they should make sure that they are actually, if the complete BCM thing is not possible, and they should make sure that whatever things are happening in and around their for how they impact overall, not in the silo to their particular I think it makes sense. Yeah, I think it was quite expensive. It's been long. First of all, certain tools which were actually long lost in the memory. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
A really informative and insightful session actually. And I have so many questions, but I will just enter with only one small question. Probably, EFS is everywhere. Okay. Have you ever thought of another competitor coming and your business is losing or something like that as a risk or something?
So, yes, does it come directly to the BCM team? If there is something that gets discussed within the firm, so it's more of a strategic discussion, and we do have those kind of teams which take care of it. But yes, competitor analysis And then when it starts becoming worse, it can always come back as a feedback to us. So it happens, but I'm not actively working on that.
Trust obtaining that is not that easy actually, but still it can be done. Yes. Nice.
I now request you to please stay back. I now request Dr. Devasya to give away the token of appreciation to Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're increasing the luggage size.
Have luggage to the system.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to hear from someone who brings not just experience but deep insight into the world of enterprise risk. Please join me in welcoming a distinguished leader, a strategist who has been at the forefront of driving resilience and proactive risk frameworks at KIAB. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Dr. Devasya, Associate Vice President, Enterprise Risk.
I suspected that that's why I stayed back there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back up.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really nice to see all of you together here. And this is first time the Business Continuity Awareness Week events are going or coming out of, probably I can say that reaching out to different organizations, organizing that there and in their premises, getting larger participation. You know, we have 35,000 plus employees across the airport company, okay? And it's not that easy to sensitize everybody directly, but what we can do is actually make this vibration or this turbulence, positive turbulence in different organizations, so that the ripple effect of those waves should be happening to the next level of people like that. That's intention. And I really appreciate Rajesh, Vinod, and all other team members of ERCR. They have a task force created for this purpose. Okay, couple of, I think some near about 10 people who are actually dedicating their time completely for this event, this organization, and everything there like that. Thank you so much. Anyway, before that, I think I have a task of giving about something about the QRT. Okay, this is something which I would like to. Sometime back we discussed that one, but still I think this is the right forum to launch it officially, formally, because all the documentation pertaining to that also has happened. Shitija, for your information, for everybody, we have a 67 plus verticals or business continuity champions, and that's a very big number. Okay, and all these champions are actually again having a backup person, an alternative person. That means 67 into 2, 67 plus into 2. Okay, and we really realize that this number of people, if actually on ground when there is a crisis, okay, then that is enough to handle that one, to contain the crisis, and also to manage it in a more efficient manner. These people are actually drafting the plan, analyzing each issues happening in and around this ecosystem or beyond, and mitigation measures are planned, actions are taken. Then why can't there be QRT? QRT means Quick Response Team. The name itself is very clear actually, for you can understand what is the meaning of that. Okay, I would like to call, probably that's a war group, people actually on ground during a contingency, but in the context we have just selected the name Quick Response Team. Okay, and the main objective of this Quick Response Team, yes, when there is peacetime, you know, people who are in the militaries and everybody understand this language actually, like peacetime, things are different. But when the war is there, then forget everything, just wear whatever that dress and get into uniform. Okay, so the Quick Response Team is mainly for that one. In this ecosystem, every day we come across with the one or other kind of challenge, problem, or real-time crisis. If nothing is there, a planned activity, maybe a major event, an event it can also trigger or turn into a disaster. We have seen it in the country and beyond actually like that. Okay, so when any of these kind of situations are happening, people who should be on ground, and then just take care of the situation, contain the situation. That is the responsibility, okay? Because all other people will be panic or will be impacted people, then who is actually going to help them? We have so many QRTs here. We have a CIS of QRT here, and they are uniform cadre people, well trained actually. Of course, they have certain set of job to do. We have a civil defense QRT here actually, I think, okay? And they are also, it's not a cadre organization, but almost a kind of voluntary organization that is also taking care of that. We have so many other QRTs created in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks time, precisely based on the learnings from the tragedy which happened in Ahmedabad and things like that. But this is a QRT which is actually going to engage not only for life-saving missions or life-involved events, but non-life. That means if an IT disruption, if a power failure, if a flood happens, or anything happens of that nature which disrupt, okay, these people are actually expected to be in the front actually and to work on. So I'm very happy to say, announce that actually like the quick response team is taking its a new turn today, and we have something to release. Somebody can join me. We know, I think you are also architect of all those things actually, so we are actually starting with, okay, so it's just a start, symbolic start actually, but all the members will be given these jackets, and when they wear that one and standing in the amidst the crowd or in the confused scenario, something like that, no, we know they will be doing justice to the situation and the people will be working together. With this, thank you very much, and let's wish all the best to the entire QRT teams. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for unveiling the QRT jackets. These jackets are more than just uniform. They symbolize readiness, responsibility, and resilience. And now I request Dr. Devasya and Ms. Shrijita Kade to distribute the jackets to the QRT teams. So now I call upon Ms. Srilekha on the stage, please. Ms. Srilekha. I should go that side. And next we have Mr. Manjunath Nayak. Thank you. Mr. Manjunath Nayak.
Can we keep having the clap
Clap.
coming, please?
Next we have Mr. Tellis. Mr. Tellis. Up next we have Mr. Srinivas. Mr. Srinivas. Next we have Mr. Vikram. Next we have Mr. Sukumar Shetty. Up next we have Mr. Prasanna Kumar. Mr. Prasanna Kumar. Please keep clapping. Please encourage them. Next we have Mr. Suresh Kumar. Up next we have Mr. Manoharan. Next we have Mr. Jayapal. officially begin BCAW 2025, remember, resilience isn't just a policy, it's a mindset. It's the quiet hero behind the smooth boarding call, the stable network, and the calm response during chaos. So get ready for a week of awareness, activities, a little bit of friendly competition too, and a whole lot of continuity. Because here at KIAB, we don't just recover, we prepare, we protect, and we perform, even when the unexpected arrives uninvited. Now, as we move towards the close of this segment, it's now my privilege to invite someone who has been instrumental in making event today possible. Please welcome Mr. Rajesh Datla to deliver vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all. In the interest of time, my rate of speech could be a little over the top, so please excuse me. This is not just a one-time event, as people associated with BILE, for a long, long time know that this is an annual event. But what do I say? On behalf of the organizing team, that meaning the ERCR team, who have contributed in building this program or in building this event, I would like to thank them to begin with, and extend our heartfelt thanks to Ms. Khatija Khade, who traveled countless air miles, from Pune or from Bombay to be with us today, and generously shared her insights. Your presence and not just your presentation, but the content that you've brought in have really made that difference, positive impact. Thank you. And a sincere thank you to, do we have Satish Babu? No. All right. Thank you. I wish he was here. We are especially grateful to our CEO Satiki and our ERCR HOD Mr. Devasiya for their continued guidance and encouragement, and the leadership drives the spirit of preparedness across the organization, not just one vertical but across 67 verticals that we have. A quick applaud to them. Thank you. And to all our 67 plus 9 BCM core group members representing BILE and our concessionaries, and now our quick response team, which also was initiated. You are the true front runners in ensuring our operational continuity. Your commitment and proactive approach have significantly strengthened and will continue to strengthen our resilience efforts. Thank you. A special call out, a special thank you to BCAW Task Force, as Doc mentioned. Your planning and contributions, your dedication has been instrumental in bringing this event to life. 2025. Thank you. And finally, to each and every participant who have taken their time out, I'm sure that you had seeded the BCP plan, replacing your chairs when you're present here. Thank you for taking time to engage, learn, and equip yourself with vital awareness around business continuity. Your presence today is the testament of the collective commitment of resilience as an organization. Thank you all. Now I hand over.
So now I request you all to please sign on the signature wall. It's a space where your name becomes part of KIAB's journey towards resilience. Whether you are signing as a planner or doer or just someone who survived a mock drill on a rainy day, please, we want to see you up here. Please sign, and later we have to gather for a picture in the first ground floor. Please. Thank you. I request you all to please sign on the signature wall, please. their